Good. Sweet. So, welcome everyone. This is Friedemann from Holistic Songwriting, and I set myself the challenge to do a live Q&A because I've never done that before, and it is scaring me a little bit. But so far, you guys are really nice in the live chat. So I think this is going to be great. I'm really looking forward to this as a challenge, but also as something that I think I really should be doing a lot more often to get in touch with you guys personally. So. Before we start, one quick thing. At the end of this live session here, I want to talk to you guys about one little thing. I'm going to wait a little bit because at the moment we only have, 45 people watching. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer until more people come on, because I have a question that I want a lot of you to hear. Because it concerns future courses for holistic songwriting. I would love to get as many people involved with this as possible. All right, but I think we're going to wait just a little bit longer because we are at 50 people right now. Going back to 48. I must have left a good impression then. All right, let's look at the live chat real quick. Where's your hairs? My hair's gone. It's, I don't know, in some bin somewhere. What? You bald, says Ethan. Do you use a DAW to write and produce? Yes, I do, Jordan Johnson. I do. These are like quick questions I can answer right now, I think. And my W of choice at the moment is Logic Pro X, but I'm seriously considering switching to Ableton Live just because I'm hearing a lot of very good things about it. And I mean, I've worked in Ableton before, but like the difference between Logic and Ableton Live, or actually all other sequencers, and Ableton Live is, from my experience, what I've heard from other people, is getting bigger and bigger. So I'm seriously considering switching. I got a question. Do you love The Weeknd's sense of music? I don't know if I like his sense of music, but I do like his music, yes. I think he's a really interesting artist. And contrary to what a lot of you might believe, even though I'm talking about formulas of artists, I think The Weeknd is a very interesting writer, and he does a lot of very interesting things. And it was certainly, apart from those one-note melodies where it's kind of clear what he does with almost every song, and even the new ones that come out are still using that same formula that I talked about in the video, he still does some really interesting things. I must say his writing style was more interesting, more complex on his earlier work, but the new stuff I also really like. It's not as complex, but I still like it. I like the emotion of it. Let's see. What's my favorite TOP song and why? My favorite TOP song, Barely Local, probably. I really dig that tune. I really love it. Really, really love that song. And it's probably my favorite just because the melody is so weird. And just, I love the synths. I love the video. I think it's really, really cool. Yeah, I really dig that song. Fuck pop music for a while and tell us about heavy metal music. I love that. Well, season 2 is going to be about alternative music. So we might actually have like 1 or 2 heavy metal bands there as well. What do you think about music schools for a bachelor? Actually, we already started, haven't we? I guess we're starting with the questions. So welcome to the official part of the podcast. I'm just going to be doing this for 45 minutes, just going through you guys' questions. What do you think about music schools for a bachelor? Well, I went to 2 different conservatories, so my answer is kind of implied with that. I mean, I didn't do it for the bachelor, that's for sure. Like a degree is going to get you nowhere in this business, that's for sure. And you know, all the big guys that really made it big, including the ones that went to my conservatory, quit conservatory just because their career took off while they were still at conservatory, and they all said like, okay, why am I here? I'm only here to get the contacts and to, like, you know, become a bigger artist, and this is already working for me. Why should I still do this whole thing? And so I think it's cool to meet people who do the same thing as you do. It's great because it gives you a lot of time to do what you love doing, writing music. And it's a lot of fun. Like, I loved my studies. It was a lot of work too. It was the most I've ever worked in my entire life, but that's also because I just really, really, really loved it. And so I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. The last 2 years, I was getting a little bit restless. I felt like, okay, I want to be doing my own stuff now. I don't want to go to school anymore. You know, I really would like to get started now. So that was a nice transition for me. And the last 2 years, we didn't have that many lessons, and then we did the internship. So for me, that was a really good transition. So in the Netherlands where I studied, it was 4 years for that study. And I did really love it. Okay, let's see. Holistic songwriting. Will you be doing this more often? I think so. This is fun so far. No one has commented anything really racist or terrible right now. So far. Are you a singer? I am a singer. Yes. Not a really good one, but I can hold a tune. I sing in a cover band still, which I just quit for holistic songwriting, so I have a little bit more time. You know, those eye bags under my eyes that I had in the last couple of videos, those were because of that cover band, because I've been up all night playing. And so I quit that cover band recently, so I have a little bit more time for holistic songwriting. And there I was singing a lot of songs on stage, stuff like Justin Timberlake, Ed Sheeran, you know, all that sort of thing. What are the things you have to choose at least to be a solid artist? A little bit confused by the wording here, but I think your question, Javi FM, is what are some decisions you have to make to become a solid artist? Is that your question? Tips for holistic approach to writing freestyles. Isn't the idea of a freestyle to just wing it and to not really plan it through too much? I don't really have that much experience in freestyling, to be honest. I mean, I studied jazz guitar for 2 years, so I can solo a little bit, but honestly, I'm too much of a fan of through composed music, which maybe shows a little bit on my channel, but I love through composed music, so I'm not really a freestyler, is what I'm saying. Do you separate the actual songwriting process or the structuring and the production part of it, or go at it all at once? For me, it's all at once, really. It depends a little bit on the song and on the style that I'm writing in, but most of the time, I'm just going to be writing straight in the DAW. So at the moment, as I said, I use Logic Pro X, but I might switch to Ableton Live because it's just the easiest way. You know, if I have something in my head and an idea of what I want it to sound like, for me, it's just the easiest to just play it in the sequencer. There are songs, though, that I will play on guitar or sometimes even on piano, which is not my strongest instrument, just because sometimes it's nice to just do something different. You know, as a songwriter, I feel, or as a creative person in general, I think it's always good to challenge yourself. This is what I'm doing right now with this, which is very much far out of my comfort zone, you know, and I do this in my normal life and songwriting job as well. I try to challenge myself constantly and set myself these tasks. Sometimes stuff that you don't even hear in the finished production, just to like move out of my comfort zone, to try out new things, you know, because I think that's really where the good ideas come from. If you do something really, really new and radically different to what you have been doing so far. So yes, I do very much do it all at once. For certain styles, folk being one, jazz being another one, I might actually go just to one instrument. I've written some orchestral music just on piano as well, but that would prove to be very difficult for me because just my piano playing skills are really, really bad. What is your favorite John Mayer song from a songwriting perspective? Oh man, I really love Gravity. I love that song. I wouldn't say that it's the best in terms of songwriting, but I just think that's such a solid tune. I love just the silence in that song and just how smooth it is. I mean, that's just candy, ear candy, totally ear candy. How do you manage your archive of songs, music, lyrics, and drafts when it grows? I mean, for me, it's like I just have this. I can actually show you here. Let's see. On my phone, I just have a bunch of voice recordings. Like this is just my ideas, right? So this is all my voice recordings, and these are all ideas that I have for potential songs. So I don't know what this is going to be. You better sleep in this your bed tonight. Sometimes it's just a line like that, something really, really simple. But it's just tons and tons of melodies like that, and I've don't think that was a particularly brilliant one. But I just record everything that comes into my head, and sometimes, you know, maybe every week or so, or every month, sometimes I'll just go through them and be like, oh, I like this one. This is really cool. And then I have like this, the favorite star that I can just add. So every now and then I'll go through my favorites and pick one or two and combine them into a song and turn it into something. So that's for my drafts. My lyrics, I just have in a folder on my laptop or my computer, which is really simple. Songs and music is all just in folders on my computer. So that's not all really that special, I think. Let's see. Oh, sorry, Cinnamon Music. I totally forgot your question. Is the pop formula you teach similar to the ones producers such as Max Martin use? If so, how? Yeah, it is for sure. Because something that's really, really important to me is that I try to keep myself or my personal opinion and what I like in music out of the equation as much as I can. And that's not always easy. That's probably the biggest challenge that I have as a teacher. But I find that really, really important to take myself out of the equation and to just really look at what's going on in the charts. And I take that as sort of the standard of what a good pop song is. Like whatever's in the charts and what's doing well in the charts is just going to be what I think of as a good pop song. So, for example, for the addiction formula, that book, I mean, I had some theories for this approach to songwriting, and I really just listened to a lot of pop music and listened to it and said, okay, does this hold true, or was I wrong about this? And about 70 to 80% of my theories turned out wrong. So stuff that I'd been doing for years. And so I do that with pretty much all of my projects, that I have these theories and I just check them with what's in the charts at the moment, or what has been in the charts in the about last 20 to 30 years. And if it doesn't hold up, it doesn't belong in a course as far as I'm concerned. So sometimes I'll add something like that, but I always kind of make a note of saying, this isn't really done a lot in pop music, but it's a really interesting, cool idea that you could try out for sure. So, and since Max Martin is heavily influencing pop music at all times, or at least right now he is for sure, yes, I would say very much that the way Max Martin writes definitely is kind of in line with what I teach at Holistic Songwriting. Have you heard of Neverland Retreat? No, I have not. Will there be a chance you will show us your process of writing a song within Logic Pro or any DAW? Yes, that's something I definitely want to do, but I'm scared shitless of doing that. It's really quite scary. It's really quite scary. It's one thing of having someone sitting next to you, looking over your shoulder while you produce something, which is something I've done quite a lot, and I like that because it also keeps me on my toes. But it's quite another thing to do that live over the internet. So that's something that's bothering me, has been bothering me for quite a while. But I want to get around to that eventually. So this is maybe a first step into that territory. But it's definitely a very scary idea, but it's something I really would love to do for you guys, to show you how I write. Are you going to continue your series on analyzing artists' songwriting? Yes, for sure. That's my my biggest show, and it's probably my favorite thing on Holistic Songwriting on the YouTube channel at least. And so yes, absolutely, I'm going to keep doing that for sure. And the next artist, you might have already a little bit of an idea who that might be, but I think it's fair to say that it's probably going to release next week. Hopefully it's going to release next week. There's a lot of things that I still have to do until then, but the script I just finished today, I think it turned out really nice. It took a long time, sorry you guys, but I'm putting as much work in as I can because I want to make this absolutely great. And I don't really care about putting out like an artist series every week. I did that for a while and that kind of backfired on me. I didn't really love the stuff that I was doing. And I think it just really does take the time, and it needs I need the time off to read some books and to get inspired by that, because it's not just an analysis, of course, it's also like combining it with what's going on in the world. So I think it's a lot of that, which is why it takes so long. Will this be archived to watch later? Yes, it will be. Yes, it will just be uploaded on the regular channel. Do you get nervous when you make a video and you are on cam? Oh, for sure, man. I'm much better now because a lot of people are saying really nice things in the live chat, which definitely helps. But before this, I was like, okay, this is crazy. Like you're actually going to do this. And I still get nervous when I do workshops and stuff like that. Um, and it's like the first 5 to 10 minutes, I'm really nervous, and then I just cool down. Like it's usually once the first person has, asked a question, and I realize they're paying attention and they get what I'm talking about, and they're not really watching me, but they're really listening to the content. And then I'm like, oh yeah, you idiot! It's not about you. It's about the content. It's about them. Ah, I'm such an idiot. And then it's like everything is easy at that point, And I just keep forgetting that for some reason. Vic says, I'm an R&B/hip hop artist, and recently a major record label reached out telling me to send them demos. I did not make any effort to reach them. How serious should I take this, and is this common? A major record label. I don't know. It's very hard to say. Tell me to send them demos. So they're writing you, but they haven't heard anything of you. Or have they seen you live, or how do they know about you? That doesn't make any sense to me. Seems like they're just fishing for people for some reason. Should you finish a song that you feel is just average? Well, I actually don't start songs that I feel are average anymore. Like I have a system in which I try to write only what I think is good. So I never get to that point where I'm like halfway through the song, I'm like, oh, this is just pretty bad. Like I think all of my songs are at least good to very good, and I always strive for great, like above very good for sure. But some of my songs just turn out somewhere between good and very good. But I think it's like with the years that I put into this craft, I think I managed to somehow place my songs within those two guidelines. But so the way I do that is actually I use a little rule that I call the Rubin rule, and I heard this from producer Rick Rubin, who lets his bands overwrite music before he selects the songs for the album. So if he has his band, if he wants to record an album with like say 12 songs, he will actually record, produce, and mix, master everything. Maybe not master, but like kind of produce 24 songs with the band. 24 songs, that's a lot of songs. And then he'll just pick the 12 best out of that. And recently I was talking to a very big German producer who told me that for their new acts, they have as many as, you're not going to believe this when I say it, 90 songs from which they choose 11 for an artist's first album. Isn't that crazy? 90 songs. That just blew my mind. I can't get over that. It's so crazy to just think about having 90 songs that you choose 11 from. Of course, the first album is going to be amazing. I mean, when you have, and this is not just one songwriter, obviously, or one producer. This is a whole bunch of people that write songs for that one artist, and then they just pick and choose the ones that they like. But it's still crazy. But that's kind of how I work in my process as well. Like, and for me, it's not that I produce entire songs and then at the end I'm like, is this actually any good? No, I do this much earlier. Obviously, like what I showed you with my cell phone, where I have all these short audio examples, I will just go through them and just pick and choose. I'm like, okay, this one is not so great. This one's good. And then I'll produce very, very, very shoddy demos in like half an hour and put them in like and they're like 30 seconds long. Put them in a folder on my desktop. And whenever whenever I want to write something, whenever I need inspiration, I go through that folder and find something that I like. And that's kind of how I work. And then it's, if it works, that's how I know that I'm gonna turn it into something. But if I find a song in that folder, I'm like, well, it's not really that great, I'm probably never gonna produce it. So that's kind of how I before I even start producing, it's gone through all of these different levels of security, so to say. Why do you think an artist like Ed Sheeran with his style got as much success as he did? As much as I want to say that it's just talent, and it sure is with Ed, and he sure has a great personality that sure helps. There's also a lot of other folk artists that are great, that have great personality, that write really fantastic songs. I think what Ed has that maybe not so many folk artists do is that he's got that pop. He's got more of a pop sound, so that certainly helped. But that being said, I mean, he made music for a couple of years before he really got famous, I think, right? Not 100% sure on that, but I think it was really the A-Team that really brought him into the public view, right? So as much as I like to say that it's all skill and talent, with every artist out there, it's always a big portion of it is luck. So yes, I mean, he had everything going for him, and then he got discovered. Like, he had that one song that became this huge success, and everything else that he put out was as good, or at least like almost as good. So people who liked the first song were like, oh, cool, he's got a new one. It's different than the first one. Awesome. He's like this really cool artist. So he had everything in place in that system for it to work together. And then he just needed that one big song, and that, like, you know, turned him into a big artist, I think. And then obviously he kept putting out great stuff. Can't get the inspiration to write. Any advice? Yeah, just do what I do with my phone. Record yourself all the time when you're in the car and you have a good idea. Turn off all CD players. You guys are like 21st century. But like cell phones or whatever, like turn off all music when you're driving, and just start singing, man. I mean, I almost never listen to music. The only time I listen to music anymore is really when I'm analyzing it, or when I'm A/Bing it with one of my mixes, when someone shows it to me, or mostly when I work on something visual where I don't need to listen to it. Like if I'm working in Logic Pro X, obviously I can't listen to music, but if I'm working in Photoshop, I'll have that going on in the background all the time. And that's, I think, the best way to do it, because it frees you up. You sort of start filling silences with your own music, and that's usually where I get my best idea. I put them on my cell phone, and that's just my idea folder. Like I have probably 100 to 200 audio files in this, and this is fairly recent. I bought this cell phone fairly recently, so that's just how I do it. Happy Ron just bought the hook checklist and was charged, but there was an error message and I got no way of accessing it. Could you write me an email, Happy Ron? I'll send it again in the live chat, because this, I don't want that to happen for sure. me@holisticsongwriting.com is my email address, and so there you can get in touch with me. Okay, so hopefully just get in touch with me and we'll figure this thing out for sure. All right. Okay. About Usher, yeah, sorry, already I've kind of picked the next artist for the next couple of episodes. You guys have voted in an online survey that I put out a couple of months ago, and I'm pretty sure I know what the next couple of artists are going to be for season 1. Okay, yeah, sure, Happy Ron, glad that we could figure this out. Is the Shawn Mendes route for success a good idea through YouTube covers? I think so. I think that's definitely something that that can work, and it's something I recommend to a lot of artists. Yeah, I think it's a good route to take, like doing a lot of covers to I mean, there's a couple of things that you have to pay attention to when you go down that route. Things like you want to pick covers that kind of reflect your own musical style, because the basic idea behind that whole cover thing is you want to get to the audience that would listen to you, right? So if I make music I'm like, okay, this kind of fits with Taylor Swift and Jessie J or whatever, like it's kind of a mix of those two artists, I should probably do a lot of covers of those two artists so that I get the fans from those two artists on board, because they might like look up for those two artists on YouTube and find me, and maybe they like me as well. And so I can grow together with those two other artists. Does that make sense? So find some artists that sound like you and do cover their music, is what I'm saying. Are you doing Muse? I don't want to say at this point, but it is probably very likely that I'm going to be doing Muse in season 2. Are pre-choruses essential for radio play? No. No, I don't think so. What are your main influences? You know what? I'm going to do an extra podcast just talking about some of my favorite artists that have really inspired me. And I announced this a while ago already, but I'm still working on my top 100 list. I would love to share with you my top 100 artists/songs. So just my top 100 artists and my the go-to song. Like if you've never heard of that artist, which song you should listen to like get into them a little bit. Can you talk about your songwriting process from start to finish? That would probably fill a couple of hours. But if I want to like condense it down to a couple of seconds, it would probably be this. So starts on the phone, me walking around singing stuff into my cell phone. So I have like this list of different audio files. Then I'll sometime, like maybe every week or every month, I'll record a couple of them. As I said, these quick 30-second demos. Whenever I'm writing, whenever I have an artist here, we go through those demos together, and we stop at the one that he or she likes, and then I'll turn that into a production. And so I have already my chorus usually, because usually what I sing into the phone is usually a chorus, or at least an idea for a chorus. And it's fairly straightforward. I mean, the details are what makes it tricky, but if you look at it from bird's view, it's really simple. You have the chorus, you copy it for the second chorus, you copy it for the third chorus, you write verses that are kind of the same, maybe a pre-chorus, maybe a post-chorus, and that's kind of it, right? Obviously, it's more complicated than that, but in the beginning, it's a lot of copy and pasting, and then it's a lot of like, okay, here I can change a little bit of something, so it's a little bit different than the first verse, or maybe I can make the second chorus just a tiny bit bigger and by adding just the shaker in the background and stuff like that. So that's the real work behind it, I think. How long should a song be? That really depends on your genre. If you want it to be radio ready, it should be around 3.5 minutes. I sometimes go for 3 minutes. But it's also possible to make a 50-minute song and then to have like a radio edit that's 3.5 minutes. So that's usually totally fine. Some songs just, it doesn't work with some songs though. Like if you listen to Tool or a band like that has like these 50-minute songs, I think if you cut it down to 3 minutes, there wouldn't be a song left. Like those songs are like these epic journeys, and they have to be experienced as such, I think. So I mean, the best advice that I've ever gotten, I think, about songwriting was from a co-student when I was still studying in Freiburg, Gernot Lilge, and he said, all you have to do is listen to the song, and the song will tell you what to do. And that sounds really esoteric, but it's true. You know, you listen to what the song wants, and if the song tells you, like, this feels too short, then just make it longer. It's actually kind of that simple. Where can I hear your songs? On my website, check out Findeisen.de. That's for Germany, DE. Do you memorize and play your songs live? Any tips from going from recording in a DAW to the stage, other than lots of time playing them? I don't really play my songs live. I mean, I do play in a cover band. I did play in a rock band for a while, and when I was a teenager, played in a couple of bands where I played my own music. So yeah, I mean, I've heard the song so many times when I'm producing them that I don't really have to like go through them again, because usually I'll just be able to memorize the whole thing. So the memory part isn't really an issue. Any tips from recording in a DAW to the stage, other than lots of time playing them? Yeah, you have to really think about which parts of the production you take with you to the live session and what you can change and what you have to change. Because with that rock band that I was playing in recently, which you can find under Finland, it's like Findland, that was like a rock band that I was a part of really quickly, like as a singer. And with them, we had some issues live because we had like this really elaborate backing track. We basically took a lot of the stuff that was in the production and took it with us live. And I think we got better once we turned off the backing track and just played live together as a band, because it just sounded more like we were a rock band and less like, I don't know, it was lacking something. So you really have to think about what it is you want. What is the most important thing you want to get across live? And for that rock band, it was the energy. And it didn't have the energy if every one of us was like listening to the click and listening to the music and listening to the backing track, and everyone was like so focused on that. I think we got better when we turned off the click and we just like brought across that energy. Okay, are there do's and don'ts regarding music promotion for indie singer-songwriters? Not really. I mean, I think you can, as in songwriting, in marketing, I think you can make pretty much anything work as long as you have a good plan. So like, you know, in the indie singer-songwriter scene, you might say like, oh yeah, honesty is really important. It's really important to come across as this really honest, open-hearted kind of musician, right? But I'm sure it would be possible to turn that on its head and to make something, to have like this really overly confident, kind of cocky singer-songwriter dude and make that work somehow as well, you know? So I think it's all about your plan, and you need a good plan. That's the most important thing. And as always with plans, it's vital to have a plan, but you'd be stupid to follow it, is what I always say. And that's a quote I picked up somewhere some time ago. But what that means essentially is you always want to plan ahead. You always want to have an idea of where you're going, but never feel like the plan dictates what you have to do. Like always be open to like changing your plans midway through. Who's next on the artist series? Can't wait for it. I'm going to give you a little hint again. What do you think about the role probably of a guitar in modern pop songwriting? Because it is less often heard on the radio. Maybe some tips for an approach to pop guitar part writing. I think actually guitar is slowly coming back. We've had some songs lately where the guitar has played a more prominent role. Like, what was that song? It kind of had this. It kind of had this rhythm. What's that song called? It goes like this. More Than You Know. That's what it's called. More Than You Know. Kind of like the Smells Like Teen Spirit rhythm. So that was a dance electronic track that featured guitar very prominently. And then we had stuff like Jesse J's Price Tag had some guitar on it. There's I Don't Like It, I Love It, which had a pretty good guitar part. So I think it's really coming back. And just looking at how we've gone through the 70s revival already, we've gone through the 80s revival, like slowly we're probably going to approach a 90s revival at some point. And the 90s were grunge music. So I think this is like a first foreboding guitar riff from that era. And I think we're going to see more guitar in the next couple of years. So if you're a guitarist, these good times are coming. Do you have any advice for a rapper trying to be melodic with his music without knowing how to sing? Well, yeah, take singing lessons. That's really the best advice I can give you. I was really hesitant to take singing lessons when I was a teenager because I was very afraid of losing my sound, and I didn't want to sound too educated in my singing because I wanted it to be rough and real and rock and roll because I was playing in grunge bands back then. But I'm so happy that I eventually did take singing lessons because it really helped me. Just my technique got better. When I listen to those recordings now, it's pretty terrible. So I'm really glad I started taking singing lessons. And singing still is one of my most important, I think one of the most important skills that I have as a songwriter. You know, when I listen to other songwriters who don't sing themselves, I always feel like their melodies just aren't as good because they don't know what feels good for a singer. And I'm not the greatest singer, but it definitely helps when writing melodies. And I know Max Martin is a fantastic singer. So, you know, if you need that as a little push, like you have to do everything that Max Martin does. I certainly don't, but it definitely helps when you're trying to write melodies if you're a good singer. All right. Do you do one-on-one Skype lessons? Yes, I do. Please get in touch with me personally. I don't want to put it on the website because I don't want to have too many people taking Skype lessons because I have, you know, an artist series to write and stuff like that. So that's why I'm not making it public to everyone. But if you want a Skype session, you can get in touch with me personally. Do you have an album? No, because I'm mostly writing for other artists, but I am working on an EP at the moment, which is going to release, I think, sometime this or next year, I think. But I think it's going to be cool. I'm going to be telling you a little bit more about that in the future. Any tips for reaching people, potential fans as a singer-songwriter when you're just starting out? I think the most important thing is to just create music. I think let the music speak for itself. I mean, just put out stuff. I think it's so important. If you want to get the attention of people, you have to put out a lot of stuff. And you're going to make a lot of stuff that people will not notice. And you are going to make those videos that get 40, 50, 60, 70 views. And I have some artists that are going, you know, doing that cover approach where they cover other artists and they just get their 60, 70 views. And that's completely normal. You know, you keep doing that. At some point, you just need one video. You just need one song for it to like break through. And then your whole channel can explode. You know, and I really do believe that good content speaks for itself. You know, if you have good songs, if you have good stuff, then eventually success will come. But you need good stuff, and you should constantly be working on yourself. And if something isn't working, then try to make it more interesting. And on the internet, being shareable is probably one of the most important things you can strive towards. And the book that got me started on marketing was Seth Godin's Purple Cow, which I've named 100 times probably on this channel already. But I really, really think that's a great book for anyone, because it's like it redefined marketing for me, because for the first time I was like, oh, marketing isn't this foot in the door approach. It's not this, you have to buy this. It can be something very creative and very interesting. It can be something very artistic as well. And so that book just really rewired my brain a little bit. So I really, really love that book. Can we collaborate? I don't do collaborations that much anymore. I'm sorry, especially not with people through holistic songwriting. I've done that in the past, and it's just taking up so much time, and I have my own project. So probably not. We might eventually over a different, some different paths, but probably not through holistic songwriting. All right, here was a question by Pierre Latast, who's been with me, I think, since day one, I feel. Oh, yeah, I think he's answering someone else's question. How do you write a good song? Oh, wow. That's a tough question to answer because there's so many things. I think, okay, let me think of a one sentence answer to that. That's a challenge. I think a good song consists of, well, it needs a good hook, it needs a good groove, and it needs lyricless storytelling, which is what I talk about in the addiction formula. Those three things. And lyricless storytelling is essentially, has to do with building energy, structure, that kind of thing, like, to simplify it. Those are the three main core things. And then we have two that are a little bit less important. Production, even though I would almost count that as a fourth thing, because it's getting so important. Like, it's gotten more and more important over the last couple of years. And lyrics, kind of. I have a love-hate relationship with lyrics. Like, there are certainly some songs that are made better by the lyrics, for sure. But I don't think I've ever listened to a song and I was like, me personally, I know there's a lot of like people that love country and folk music that are just listening to the lyrics and they don't care if the music's good or not. Me personally, the music has to grab me and, emotionally get me. And then the next step for me is like, oh, the lyrics are also great. Awesome. This makes this one of my favorite songs. So the lyrics have the potential to turn a song from a good song into a great song. But I don't think they have the potential to make a good song. So I wouldn't, in the beginning, as a songwriter, don't focus too much on lyric writing. I would say rather really, I mean, if your lyrics are really cringy, that can really turn a song from a good song into a bad song, of course. But in the beginning, if you just write like kind of like just okay lyrics, just don't pay too much attention to that in the beginning. I think the most payoff you're going to get from writing good music and focusing on that. What makes a melody catchy and how to come up with something which is memorable? Well, I have written an entire course about that one question alone, which is the hook and melody master files. I think you can just Google it probably, hook and melody master files. And that's a really complicated question because there's so many things you can do, but they all follow that same principle of structure. You have to structure your melodies as much as you can. And there's about 100 different ways to structure a melody. And in that course, I talk about the 7 really, really big ones that you hear on the charts all the time. They're like the 7 biggest approaches. So check those out. What's the best way to advertise your music to new people on a low budget? First of all, I think you shouldn't really pay for advertising as a musician. I think the music needs to advertise itself. If the music isn't reaching people by itself, and if it's not developing a life of its own, then I think you're doing something wrong. Your music just needs to be great. And most of the time, with most of the people that I've listened to, the problem is not the marketing and it's not the way they look, even though they think that, or it's not, the people that they're connected to. And everyone always pushes it on that. Like, everyone always says like, oh yeah, it's because I don't, have the marketing team that Taylor Swift does, or I don't have the proper production or whatever. Most of the time it's the songs. And that's 99% of the time, or more probably. I don't hear a lot of good music out there, from newcomers. And that's really the biggest issue. And It's understandable because, first of all, it is a very, very difficult thing to write a good commercial song. I mean, it's a difficult song to write. It's a difficult thing to write a good song, but to write a good commercial song is on a whole nother level too. You know, to understand what's going on in the world and to write something that works with that, but is still new, is another challenge of its own. So that's already difficult enough, you know. And then that's the biggest thing, really. I mean, then you also need you need a good performance, which is tricky. Performance is so, so important in pop music. You need good performers. You need a great production, so important. There's so many elements, you know, that come together. And, you know, as I said, the biggest acts in the world, they have 90 songs for every single one of their albums. So, I mean, you're competing with that, right? You're competing with the big ones always. So that's just how it is. Ryan Rene says, love your stuff. Thank you. Do you recommend making a song a day? I think of it like playing the piano. If you were a concert pianist, you would practice for hours a day. So I'm trying to come up with the energy. Yeah, you can do that. I think your goal just always has to be, so this is me personally. I've heard people who have had very good successes with a song a day challenges. Personally, I've always thought it's not about quantity so much, it's really about quality, and I just want to write great stuff. And if I were to do this challenge, I've never done it, I would set myself the challenge to just write a great song every single day. It has to be great. Like, otherwise, like, I'm not going to do it. Like, every single song has to be great. And obviously not every song is going to turn out to be great, but that's just got to be my my challenge that I'm going to set myself. Not to write just a song a day and to finish a song a day, which is already challenging. But for me, it would have to be like, but it has to be great, right? So the challenge for me wouldn't really be finishing a song every day, but the challenge for me would be finishing a great song every day, right? It has to be great first, and then you have to do it in 24 hours. And also another thing on that would probably be, personally, I think inspiration is really crucial to this whole thing. Like, if I wrote a song a day, I don't know. But I mean, if I had my folder with all my ideas, I could definitely do it. But if I didn't, and I just had to come up with a new idea every single day, I feel like my songs would sound very much alike after a while. So when I'm writing on a bigger project, I try to like let a little bit of time pass in between songs, just because I want there to be new inspiration, and I want to read a couple new books, and I want to watch a couple new movies, and even play some new board games, or, you know, whatever helps you some good ideas. All right. Song a day, a lot of crap, says totally overrated. Good name, by the way. Maybe a better goal is to make progress on your songs every day. It's kind of how I see it, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure there's something good comes out of that too, writing a song every day. And it is important to be fast, but not when you're a beginner. In the beginning, it's really all about just getting better as a songwriter. It's not about speed in the beginning. In the beginning, it's really, really all about just being the best songwriter you can be. What is your name? Oh, yes, we should do a pronunciation game. It's Friedemann Findeisen. I know I say that very quickly in my videos. Which is a German name, which means peace man, find iron, I guess. So to pronounce it, it's free, so it's like free, but then the R is a German R, so Friedemann, Friedemann, Findeisen, Findeisen. How do you spell that? I'm not gonna spell it right now. When writing for an album, I like to finish a song every day. Maybe it's not polished or completely fleshed out, but you have a solid foundation to work from. Well, if it works for you, it's great. Yeah, so it's, yeah, Friedemann, Marty, you're writing it correctly, just another N. I can't pronounce your name. I'm Dutch, says Karianne. Well, hallo Karianne. Ik hoop je vindt het een beetje leuk wat ik hier doe. Ethan Young says, Friedemann, dang it. Totally overrated says, I'm going to butcher that. Pedro Soto says, do you like Taylor guitars? What's your favorite acoustic guitar brand? Honestly, I'm Oh man, I'm probably not a guitarist in that way, but I'm a if I buy a car, it needs to get me from point A to point B kind of guy, you know. Um, I personally am not like super into guitars, so probably the wrong person to ask about that. Like, I'll definitely be able to hear the difference between a good guitar and a great guitar, or between a bad guitar and a good guitar for that matter. But for me personally, it doesn't really matter what kind of brand it is. So yeah, sorry. I'm releasing my first song soon, and I am terrified, says Megan Amokazi. How did you feel before releasing your first song? Terrified. Yeah, everyone feels that way. It's the worst feeling in the world. Um, and the worst, no, but the worst thing, no, the worst feeling in the world is when you release your first song and no one cares. That's the worst feeling in the world. So you have a lot of difficult challenges and questions coming your way. It's difficult. And it is just difficult. That's the only thing I can say. I'm sorry. But you have to get through it. It's just just the way it is. And the only thing you really can do is once you release something, you just keep working. Just put out something new. Um, that's the only thing you can do. You just keep working. You have to put out stuff and keep getting better. That's the only thing you can do. You're German and live in Germany. How do you have so little accent when speaking English? Says totally overrated. Well, I am German, so I guess my English. I mean, I learned it in school, obviously, and that's kind of how I learned to write and read English. And then when I was a teenager, maybe around 17, 18, I watched a lot of Family Guy. Like I was obsessed with it to a point where I call it parrot English. Like I was able to recite some of the lines from the episodes, or a lot of them actually. Like maybe not by heart, but if I was watching the episode, I would be able to like, oh, now he says this. I remember this. And so that's how I kind of learned how to speak it, like how to speak like a regular American, I guess, And the way I personally learn languages, and that's not a conscious thing, but that's just how it is for me, is whenever someone asks me something, for example, I don't like make up the sentence on the spot, but I just recall like an episode from Family Guy and just exchange like the nouns or something like that, You know what I mean? So I just steal kind of the sentences and just exchange the words. That's how it works for me. So my best advice to anyone who wants to speak or who wants to speak better English or wants to write in English is to just everything you consume from now on, everything you consume from now on, whether it be books, movies, TV series, audiobooks, especially stuff that you have to listen to. Turn off the subtitles and really focus on understanding. Because for me back then, Family Guy on German is just atrocious. So I had to watch in English, and there were no subtitles. So I just had to listen very closely because I wanted to understand all the jokes. And that's really how I learned. You have to listen to everything in English or whatever language you want to learn, and then just really, really push yourself to understand every single word. Because the easiest thing is to just, after a while, just tune out. And I just would never allow myself to do that. If I tuned out, I would just skip back and listen to it again until I understood it. And I would kind of replay certain sections over and over again until I understood them. And if I didn't understand the word, I'd just go on Google and just type in what I think the word sounded like until I got it, And if I didn't know a word, I would just always look it up to just learn as quickly as possible. Okay, Ethan Young says, I like your question, Ryan. So I'm going to look at Ryan Renee's question. Best books on lyric writing. Oh, that's such a tough one. That's such a tough one. I mean, I've read the what's his name? Pat Patterson? It's Pat Patterson. Pat Patterson, right? With an I. Pat Patterson. I've read those books, Songwriting Without Boundaries and Writing Better Lyrics. And I did have a couple of aha moments, and it was like, oh, now all of this is much easier. So I would recommend them. But I do have a lot of issues with those books as well. But that came much later when I was a lot more into songwriting. So I think for a beginner, it's a good thing, mostly because it shows you like blind spots, right? It helps you with figuring out what you don't know yet, and like puts your eye on like certain things you might have never thought about. So that's what it's really great about. But what I'm really missing from those books is any kind of parallels with what's going on in the charts. It feels very much like, oh, this book teaches you how to become a good country writer of the 90s. You know, it doesn't really show you how to become a good lyric writer today. And so if you want to be a good pop writer, I don't know if I would recommend it. I think I would, because anything you read makes you smarter. And so whenever you can have the possibility to read a book, I would always say, yes, do it. But if you only had 14 hours to learn something, I wouldn't tell you to read that book. I would tell you probably to do something else during the time, probably to write a song and just to experiment yourself, or watch the lyric writing master files, obviously, which you can also find on Google or on the website. What do you think the next big genre musical movement will be, says Skyfer? And we have 10 more minutes, guys, so kind of got to round it up now a little bit. The next big genre musical movement, I think, I mean, I can only guess, right? But judging from what we've seen in the last couple of years, like as we said, we did like the 70s, 80s revival. I think it's about time we kind of get to the 90s. So I'm guessing guitars, I guess, and like grunge influences are going to come back, if that theory holds up, that we are kind of reliving those decades. So that will be my best guess. In the near future, I think we're going to see a lot more triplet melodies in pop songs. We've had triplets, obviously, with the Versace flow and what is it called? The Migos flow. Sometimes they call it that, like the degada 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 degada, like Designer's Panda, those kind of songs. With that flow, we've seen that a lot in rap music. Like that's really taken over the hip hop world to a point where old hip hoppers like Snoop Dogg's really like just. It's funny. There's like an interview with him where he's like making fun of it. But anyways, so we had that a lot in hip hop, and I think hip hop always kind of is a front runner in those kinds of things, or at least lately it has been. And we're already starting to see those triplets kind of flow over into pop music. There was what's her name? I forgot it now. Selena Gomez song, which also had like triplets in the verses, I think. So I think we're going to see a lot more of that in terms of like a small technique. But I think the big movement is going to be, hopefully, I really hope that for that, is going to be grunge music is going to come back. Okay, I'm going to take, let's say, 3 more questions. And then I really want to ask you guys something. Marty says, what's your favorite German band? So the first thing that popped into my head was Rammstein, just because I really appreciate what they're doing. Stylistically, I think they're, and marketing-wise, it's just a really smart thing that they're doing, and they sound like no one else. It's not my favorite music, although I like some of their songs, but I think it's just an interesting band to study. Also, the way they play their stuff, and they managed to make music that really sounds German in a way. You know, I think that's really kind of admirable. That they managed to sound like a German iron-making kind of machine, you know what I mean? Like it sounds the part, and I think that's really interesting. I think that's why they managed to be an international band. I enjoy Die Ärzte a lot. Yeah, Die Ärzte is a good band. German bands, man, I really don't listen to that much German music. I'm sure like after this is over, I'm going to be like, oh, dude, I should have said this. Yeah, truth be told, I don't really listen to a lot of German songs. I mean, I do sing Mark Foster live on stage, and those songs are fun to sing. I don't think they're brilliant or anything, but they're definitely fun to sing. All right. What is your favorite composer of all time in any century? Says Skyfer. My favorite composer of all time. Well, I might have to leave that up for my top 100, because otherwise I'd be taking away like the big finale, right? Marshall Austin says, pick my question. Should I perform a lot to get heard? Lots of open mics, support another artist, and go on tour? I think you should perform a lot to get heard. Like, it's obviously better than not performing and not getting heard. It's just the question, like I always think of it in terms of scalability, right? That's always a big issue for me. In terms of marketing, when you do something, you want it to work for 5 people, and you want it to, at the same time, you want it to work for 5 million people. So when you make a YouTube video, for you, it doesn't matter if 1 person watches it or a million people. Like for you, it doesn't change anything. Like YouTube might have a little bit more traffic on their site that they have to handle, but for you, it doesn't matter. You just uploaded a video, right? So I think YouTube is just, even though there's much more competition out there, of course, might be a quicker way, an easier way to grow, is what I'm saying. Support another artist and go on tour, that I think is definitely a good idea if you can manage to get together with a big artist that sounds kind of like you, so that kind of has the same fan base as you, like that you can kind of, steal the fan base from, kind of like a parasite. Parasite marketing is actually what that is called. Then that's certainly a good thing. It's not always easy, and usually to kind of get there, you need to play a lot of live gigs, and at live gigs you might meet someone. But if you really want to go big, I think the best way to do it is to just have quality material on sites like YouTube or Vimeo or Snapchat, Instagram, something like that. And I see a lot of musicians who make it that way, just because it's so scalable, and it's for you, it's the same amount of work. Megan Amokazi says, "You seem like such a down-to-earth guy." Oh my God. Well, thank you. How do you know your music is good? Says Karian Hilkema. Sorry, I butchered that. That's a great question. That's a really, really great question, because I never know, really. For sure, at least. I might actually tell you a little story. Let's make this the last question. So as a songwriting teacher, you sometimes get these people who send you songs. And I had this one artist, I'm not going to name any names because I think that's just mean, but I had this one artist who sent me a song, and I gave it a fair, I did this show in the beginning of YouTube, you might not know this, called Feedback Friday, which I highly recommend all of you watch, because I think it's maybe not super sexy or anything like that, but if you want to learn how to properly write songs, I think it's probably one of the most valuable resources on this channel. It's the first couple of videos that are on this channel. I think those are really, really valuable if you want to learn how to write songs, because you hear other people's songs and you hear what they've done wrong, and it kind of tells you like, oh, well, I shouldn't do this, I guess. And that's kind of how you learn songwriting. My experience is to listen to bad music and then figure out like what they are doing wrong and just not do that. And this one time I had this guy, and usually I would start my episodes with some nice words about the songs, and I always try to do that. I think it's important, no matter how bad the song is, or I don't really believe in bad songs, but just maybe inexperience, like maybe it's just not there yet, and maybe it has a good idea or something like that. But this one time, and it was really just once, one single time I got a song that was so bad that I couldn't really think of anything positive to say about it. And that's never happened again, thankfully. And so I was really torn apart, like, should I do this review? But I thought, like, well, the thing is, if you say something positive about it, it kind of puts everyone else down, like everyone else you've said something nice about, it's going to think, well, he said something nice about him, like, well, then is my song really that good? Because his song was shit, and so, I did an honest episode. I think it's wrong, morally wrong, to, in that case, say something positive about the song. And so I gave a pretty bad review. I said, but I didn't just give a bad review. I also told him, like, here's what you should work on. Here's what you need to do to get better, which is always what I focus on in my feedback. Because I think, who am I to say, first of all, if your songs are any good? And secondly, like, what can you do with me telling you that your song sucks? Like, that just doesn't help you in any way. So, so that had repercussions, because that guy wrote me and said, like, if I could give you a little tip, don't always say just negative things. You should always say something nice as well. And I was thinking, like, yeah, well, I did with all the other guys, and maybe just you should take a hint, because maybe I didn't love it so much. That's what I was thinking. But I tried to write back in the most friendly way possible, and I said, it's just my opinion, and that's kind of how I put it, right? And then he wrote back. He got really, really angry, probably because he wanted to get a reaction out of me, and I just didn't give him anything. And he just wrote back, like, I'm a very experienced songwriter with, like, years of experience, and I've written for this guy and that guy, and blah, 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 blah. And I was thinking, well, yeah, but none of that matters, because if your songs suck, and this might just be my experience, and it just might be my opinion, but I mean, I've shown the song to others, not to like put that person down, but because I was honestly like struggling with this idea of like, you know, what if, for example, my songs really suck? Because I don't know if my songs are really great. I think my songs are good. That guy certainly thinks his songs are great. How do I know if my songs are actually good? Like, you just don't know. And that's a challenge as a songwriter. You can't know. I mean, you just show it to people, and if people tell you they like it, and if enough people do that, and if people share your stuff, I think that's a good indicator, but you can never know for sure. And luckily, with the latest stuff that I've been writing, and it's all in demo material so far, so it's nothing I've really put out yet. I've gotten very good feedback, so I think I'm on a good track. But that doesn't mean I can't write a bad song too. You know, it might just happen that my next song turns out total shit, but that's just how it is. So I think that was the last question, and I just wanted to ask you guys one question in return, and that would be, if you guys maybe had any ideas for me, because I did this 30-day challenge, right, for the rhythm challenge, which was all about timing. And then someone commented on YouTube. I did like a video on ear training real quick, like how important is ear training or something like that was the question that I answered in that video. And I answered that comment because he said, like, in that comment, he said, like, how do you get better at ear training? Like, that was kind of what he was saying. I would love to be able to like transcribe songs on the fly as well, because, you know, when I'm playing live, like I once, for the cover band that I was playing in, when I started there, we didn't have a rehearsal. I just went on stage and had to perform 70 songs that I'd never played before live, which was totally fucking crazy, and I never recommend you would do that. But that's kind of how it was, because we just like didn't have the time to rehearse. And I had one day to learn those 70 songs. And since I don't listen to any German music, it was like, I mean, it was 70 songs that I had never heard before. And I think it was like 110 songs in total. So I knew a couple of them, but 70 songs that I'd never heard before. And I'd never played any of the 110 songs. And the way I did it was, from like, if there was a really prominent guitar riff, those I would learn, and everything else I would just do by ear. And that worked, and no one noticed. I mean, maybe the band leader probably noticed, but no one like in the audience noticed that for sure. And that's just because I can really transcribe music as it flies by, basically, and really just play it by ear. And so so that guy in the comment section asked me, how did you do that? I would love to be able to do that as well. And I said, well, you know what? I should actually make a 30-day challenge about that, because that's something that's actually not that complicated once you know how to do it. Because when I first learned music, ear training, it was in the completely wrong way. And later at conservatory, they showed me the real way. And then I was able to do it within a day. Seriously, I like they just had to tell it to me how it really works. And it was like within 5 minutes, it was like, oh, it's so easy. Why did I do all this really complicated stuff? So the question that I have for you guys is, are you guys interested in more 30-day challenges? And I'm surely going to do like the ear training challenge, 30 days of pure ear training. But are there any other challenges you guys might be interested in? I've also been thinking of stuff like confidence boosting stuff, or maybe self-promotion, marketing, stuff like that. But I want to ask you guys, what would you guys be interested in as a 30-day challenge? So yes, and now I'm just going to read the live chat and hopefully read out a couple of good ideas from you guys. And I'm putting you guys on the spot, but at least the camera isn't on you. Happy Ron says, I like the rhythm challenge and having a quick, easy thing every morning to do. So ear training, sign me up now. Cool. All right. Ear training will definitely happen. It's the 30-day lyric challenge. You bet. Yeah, I already have a 30-day lyric challenge, actually, Marshall. Confidence. Yeah, that's a big one, right? By the way, if you're watching this later, like, you know, not live, then feel free to turn off now, because I'm just going to read some comments now. And actually, you know what? Since I can read comments, even if this whole thing isn't streaming anymore, I might just turn this off right now. And thank you all for watching. And I had a blast. This was a lot more fun than I expected. I thought this was going to be really challenging and very scary. And you guys were so great. And just, you know, chatting with you guys in the live chat just completely made me rethink all of this, and just really took my fear away. Like, I'm so much more comfortable just knowing you know, that you guys got my back. And I feel really happy that I did this, and I'm going to be doing this a lot more often. So thanks so much for doing this with me. And, you know, see you next week, hopefully on the artist series. Cheers.